You're looking for cinematic sustenance? Come and break bread with us as we dive deep into two scrumptious cult classics in our Culinary Communion episode. Join us at the Film Swap Podcast.
Here is a motion picture film.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrill.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Film Swap. My name is David Seeley, and I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed co-host, a man who will wow you in the kitchen, provided you like fried egg sandwiches. He's the ecstatic gaucho himself. He is Jonathan Pritchard Barrett. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm very well, David. Good to see you again. How are you?
Well, you know, I'm okay. I'm okay. I was just telling the guys before the show, I'm feeling a slight sort of cold coming on, so listeners will have to excuse me if I sound a bit croaky tonight, but I'll do my best to soldier on through. We have a returning guest. Jonathan refers to him often on the show, so we thought it would be a good idea to actually get him back on so he could speak for himself. Jonathan, if you'd like to introduce our guest for us.
Yes, our guest is Ken Williams, who's a scriptwriter, film director, and general sort of film guy, expert, script doctor as well, magician with words and drama. Great chap.
Thanks, Johnny.
Altogether.
Oh, well, brilliant. Well, thanks for coming back, Ken. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to be back. Thanks, gents. Yeah, I'm very well. But looking forward to chatting about some films.
Yeah, good films.
Brilliant. We've got a great theme tonight because we are talking about culinary communion, because we're talking tonight about a couple of films that deal with the importance of food. Not just important, but how they how food binds us together, brings us together, hold memories, and also our aspirations as well, I think. And so we're talking about a couple of really, really interesting films. One of them's a bona fide classic of world cinema, a big, massive hit in its day. It comes from Japan from the mid-'80s, and it is called Tampopo. And we'll be speaking about that in the second half of the show because it's an absolutely wonderful film, and it's well worth checking out. And we're going to dive in tonight and talk a little bit about it. But first, we have a film that Ken has recommended for us tonight as part of our culinary double bill. Ken, would you like to introduce to us the film that we'll be talking about tonight? It's a bit more of a recent film.
I'll tell you, right, me being on mute was planned because I want to take you back to COVID when we weren't used to these things and everyone was on mute all the time. And that is when this film was released. I saw a note that it was one of the films that was largely forgotten, that didn't really maybe get the attention it deserved because it was released during COVID. There's another few films mentioned as well. But the film I've chosen is Pig. It's a debut feature from a guy called Michael Sarnoski, starring Nicolas Cage, from 2020.
So we approached you about talking tonight about food films. So what was it about this film that you wanted to put forward, aside from the obvious, which was that we want more people to be aware of this film and to come check it out?
Yeah, I guess it was. I struggled to think. The ones I thought of immediately were all a bit obvious, I think. And I landed on Pig because it felt really modern and it felt kind of indie. I couldn't really think of any kind of indie films about food. They were all a bit. There was comedies. There was kind of dramas, kind of old films, that immediately came to mind. But then I thought, actually, this was kind of breakout hit, first time director. I'd only seen it once, and I remembered really liking it. So I thought, actually, I can speak to that, and I've since rewatched it.
Yeah, me too. I remember seeing it when it came out because it sounded so intriguing, and it was really nice to revisit it. It's a film that very much confounds your expectations, doesn't it? As you go in, it sort of builds certain expectations in it that you think you know the way that it's going to go, but then it just never does. It kind of takes you off in a completely different
Yeah,
direction. And it's a very kind of human story, humanistic, shall we say. And
yeah, very much so. Which I think every like any film about food probably should be.
yes,
Um, but yeah, so were you familiar with film? You had seen it previously, David.
I did. I saw it when it came out, more or less, like when it was in its kind of first run. I saw it on television, but it was during its initial sort of release run a few years ago, and it did make a really good impression on me. I liked it very much. And but it was something that again had kind of gone back into my head as something I'd kind of I wouldn't say forgotten about, but just sort of I guess I'd put it aside in the memory box as something that I
Yeah,
enjoyed, but I didn't really, it wasn't really on my radar to revisit it again or anything until you suggested it, and then I immediately was like, oh yes, actually
yeah.
that's a really good film, and that's a great choice actually. How about you, Jonathan? Have you? Is this your first time with Pig?
Yeah, it is my first time watching it. I think I first heard about it from Ken a while ago. I mean, way before we talk, thought about discussing this subject. And but then I think one or two other people have mentioned it to me as well, saying how they enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, that sounds. And that's it. Because a few years ago, a couple of years ago, I went to the National Truffle Festival.
Right.
Of course you did.
As you do.
Everyone's
Yes.
wearing like pig t-shirts.
Exactly, which is in Sussex, at a racecourse in Sussex. And anyway, when I came back and mentioned this, and people, oh, pig, you got to see Pig. Pig's really good. It's all about truffles.
But
And,
it isn't.
well, yeah, not really. It's not very much about truffles at all. No, but it does. It does. Truffles do feature.
Well, it's very much about the sort of the market for truffles in of all places, Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, I didn't realize this before this film, but apparently Portland is very well known for its culinary tradition. It has a lot of very fancy restaurants, a lot of posh restaurants, and they have kind of a history of a really thriving sort of food industry in the city. So this film very much plays into that, almost in a sense, kind of satirizes it in a sense because it kind of goes in. Nicolas Cage sort of descends on Portland on a quest to find his missing pig. That's essentially the very high level story of the film. But it's about so much more, really. It's about kind of memory and loss and grief um, and just how food factors into all those things. How
Mm.
food very much sort of holds a lot of keys to our memories and our connection with other people. And so the film quite often has some very moving moments, touching moments about that interplay and that importance. Jonathan, what did you think of Nicolas Cage character? Because he's sort of like a recluse. He's someone who's withdrawn himself from society.
yes,
But what do you think of him? Because when the film initially opens, it feels to me like it's going to be like kind of a John Wick kind of a revenge movie where he's going to go out and and bash people over the head with an axe or something for taking his pig. But
Yes.
the film isn't like that at all. It doesn't go in that direction whatsoever.
No, I really like the film, and I liked old Nick Cage performance, and I mean I guess Nick Cage is quite an interesting actor. He's sort of different, isn't he? And I didn't.
Yeah.
It's only I think I saw his Bad Lieutenant, Port of New
Oh
Orleans,
wow, right.
which is absolutely bonkers film, and sort of changed my view of Nick Cage completely. Before that, I don't know what I thought of him, but after that, it's like, wow, this guy is incredible, absolutely incredible. And I realized, and I looked at his Wikipedia page. It turns out he calls his acting mega acting,
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
manic acting, or something like this, or both actually. And so once you understand that, in a sense, he's a little bit like a truffle. It's just slightly overpowering, maybe not for everybody.
Yeah, but the
If you like,
best directors know how to use them. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
exactly, and
Love it.
Well, it's interesting. Over the last few years, he's very much developed because he's gone through a little phase. I mean, there was a point when he was kind of an A-lister and he was doing a lot of big Hollywood blockbusters, like Face Off and Con Air and all those kind of big
Yeah,
action pictures and things. And he went through that kind of phase, National Treasure, all those kind of things. But then he kind of went into this phase where he started doing a lot of sort of lower budget films and a lot of films. Like he was like sort of like it almost felt like he was in a film every other week. There was
yeah,
a new Nicolas Cage movie coming out, and they were these smaller films, a lot of kind of science fiction and action films and things like that. And he seemed to start to get this reputation for his, as you say, Jonathan, these kind of really out there, kind of a bit wacky, a bit volatile and extreme performances. But just in the last few years, he seems to have been sort of coming back into doing films like these in Pig, which it's a very restrained, very delicate performance and very nuanced and really, I think he was absolutely excellent in this. And it's maybe sort of, I would go so far as to say it's one of the sort of best performances I've seen him do in a very long time. Really, it's just a really beautiful film, and he really humanizes this guy a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, yes,
yeah. I watched. Have you seen Dream Scenario?
no,
It's
No,
I think it's this year. It's again this kind of nuanced performance. He plays some kind of professor, and it's I think something about big tech or there's some big science thing, and they play with his mind, and it's really funny. Kind of reminded me of Adaptation.
mm,
His performance in that, very good, worth checking out. I haven't seen The Surfer, but I've heard that's good as well
mm.
in terms of this kind of catalog. This
Well,
right,
it's
kind
a
of
bit hard. There's so many hours in the day, so actually trying to keep up with Nicolas Cage films can be a bit of a challenge.
yeah, exactly. I think a moment may have. Have you seen The Unbearable Massive Talent? That
Yeah,
one.
yes, I did see that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's the peak of Nick Cage is crazy, and it was all meta. And I think
Mm.
after that, he couldn't really play to that anymore because it's just so silly. And the whole point of the film was his persona. Hopefully, we've moved on from it now because it was a bit annoying.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair to him, I think he's someone who, he doesn't hold out for the next big blockbuster sort of, $30 million payday or whatever and do a great big huge movie. He's just kept working
Yeah,
and he's just kept doing stuff. And I know he has a lot of interest in things like science fiction and comic book things. So he's just naturally sort of got involved in those kind of things because I think that's something that kind of turns him on. He likes doing those kind of
yeah,
things. So the
that's
fact that
screaming.
he's just constantly working and would have to give him a lot of credit for that, I think. And he is very versatile, really. I mean,
It is.
he's a very good actor. He's got a lot of talent, and He's a
I
pretty cool
just
guy.
yeah, I just read Cameron Crowe's memoir.
Oh, right.
So it's new, and he is talking about Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
Yeah.
and Nick Cage
His
auditioned
debut.
for the Sean Penn role,
Hmm.
I think, and he came on and he said at that time he was still using Coppola as his name, Nicholas Coppola or Nicholas something Coppola maybe. He said he blew everyone away, and I think he had the role. And then Sean Penn came on, and Sean Penn really blew everyone away.
Yeah.
But yeah, he spoke of him. I can't think did he work with Cameron Crowe before or since then? But yeah, brilliant career, all Nick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Well, Ken, he seems to like to do a lot of films, so you could reach out to him perhaps and see
One
if he's
day,
interested.
well, The Surfer I think was made by an Irish director.
Uh,
Funnily enough, but yeah, I would love to work with Nick Cage, obviously. I
well,
think
he's got a bit of time available next week, so if you
yeah,
get in there, you might.
I'm busy though. It's really busy at Ocado, John. I couldn't. Sorry, Nick.
Uh, well, I'm sure the opportunity will come up. The film, to me, I found it quite an interesting thing about because it kind of ties in very much with the second film, Tampopo, that we'll be talking about in a little while. In the fact that both of the films seem to very much emphasize the idea of the kind of the master, the kind of the person who's an expert at preparing food. But I mean, it could be anything if you look at it from a more universal angle. But these are people who are very detail oriented and seek perfection in their mastery of the work of preparing food.
hmm.
So, what did you think about that angle in this? Because he's someone who's left, he's kind of dropped out of society because of his because he's experienced some trauma of various kinds. So he's withdrawn from society, but he's someone who still maintains that calm sort of pursuit of perfection, even in when he's out foraging in the woods for truffles with his pig.
Mm.
So, what do you make about that side of his personality?
It doesn't really make sense. Is this perfectionist in food? I don't quite. You know what I thought? It was released in 2021, and in 2022, The Bear came out,
Oh, yeah.
and
Mm.
The Bear is was acclaimed as like this show that is showing fine dining, the stress of the kitchen, the pursuit of perfection in a different way. A lot of the similar ideas that Pig maybe had, but I don't think the writer knows food. I wouldn't say he worked in the industry. I think he
So,
probably
is this the bear you mean, or
no,
the
sorry,
pig?
in Pig. I think
Okay.
Pig is more like a character study and using truffles and food as a way in, which I think the scenes about food are lovely, but it doesn't really. I don't understand why he won't wash his face. I don't understand why he's so dirty. And I don't understand he like his kindness in the film, which I think is really great, but it didn't quite square that why he couldn't get over his own grief. He couldn't. He seems so full of empathy, and his life advice to the young kid, and he was all nothing matters, fatalistic, but also really tender towards humans, but couldn't get past grief, which is a very human thing. We all have to get through it at some point. You know,
Mm.
he listens to that tape over and over. I think, God, it doesn't strike me as someone who a high achiever for one. I mean, maybe it's this breakdown, obviously, but our perfectionist. That it doesn't strike me that he would do that. He just wants to say goodbye and live with his pig, listening to his deceased wife's tapes. It just feels, come on, Nick. There's more to it. We can do it.
Well, do you think though that someone who aims for total perfection, because obviously it's unattainable, isn't it? It's something that you can't really achieve perfection. It's not, there
Yeah.
isn't really perfection. Doesn't really exist in nature or anywhere, does it? So
No.
perhaps that it kind of leads to a point when he experiences great trauma, this loss, that could explain his complete withdrawal
Yeah.
from society, and that perhaps this quest through this series of incidents leads him on a quest to actually
Yeah.
get over that grief and somehow reconnect with the real world. And
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I saw it. If anything, it kind of reminded me a bit of the what's the the film with Sandra Bullock, who's caught up in the spaceship,
Oh,
up
Gravity.
Gravity,
Oh,
because
oh,
that in a way is kind of the same thing. It's a sort of like a kind of a metaphor for getting over grief, that journey of going
yeah.
through a loss and having to um, and it just externalizes it as this situation with her stuck in a space shuttle or whatever it is,
Yeah.
stuck up in the atmosphere and having to escape and get back down to Earth. But kind of that in a way, kind of Pig reminded me of that a little bit, because it felt a bit like the same thing about someone who's kind of totally withdrawn into his own kind of sadness and completely lost his self-esteem and his sort of reason for moving forward.
Yeah.
But then this sort of unpleasant incident of losing his pig forces him to reconfront all those things. And it's interesting that you said you liked it a little bit less this time, because I found, if anything, I liked it more this time. I kind of felt like I got more out of it the second time
Mm.
around, because I think that first time when you watch it, as I said, it kind of confounds your expectations. And I think because the poster for the film, I mean, I have it here on my screen, it kind of shows Nicolas Cage all looking angry with a big beard, and I think that he's even got a little blood on his face. And then the story starts out very John Wick like, with him losing his pig, and you kind of think, okay, I see where this is going. Someone's taking his pig, and he's going to go and get payback. he's gonna he's gonna go and crack some heads and get his pig back, and that's where this is going. But it just completely constantly confounds your expectations. Even though there is bits of violence in it, there are bits when he kind of descends into this
Why?
underground.
Why? What? Why is that in the film? Like, what is that about? What is like
Well, he's
restaurants?
obviously
Are we
he's
through
left a
spoilers here?
trail of
What's the
people who are disappointed in him, and I
yeah?
think there was like him sort of taking his knocks in order to ingratiate himself back into the community,
I
in a
know, but
sense.
what kind of universe is this? Is this like an alternate version of Portland where it
It's like
because
Fight
as I
Club.
said, it's like there's such a culture of restaurants. This is the underground where they have this illegal fighting thing with this
Yeah.
guy like
Well,
keep
I think it was.
It didn't
it's
make sense.
mental. I was like, what is that about?
No.
And
It's a
he's just
bit of like a
running.
satire, I think, because it's funny that they get all these sort of homeless people to come in, and then
Yeah,
the kind of lower staff in them. When I say lower, I mean in the sense of their higher, where their place in the hierarchy of staff of these restaurants and hotels get to come down and take
yeah,
their anger out by beating somebody to a pulp.
mad.
And I guess it's sort of like this, meant to be an expression of the sort of the working class people kind of getting a bit of their own back, but of course they're taking it out on people who are even
Yeah,
lower on the social strata than they are, which is sort of
stop the
like
boats! Stop those boats!
yeah, exactly. It's that same kind of thing. It's like, never look up at the guys up there, take it out on the guys down there. That's kind of, it's like kick the cat, that kind of mentality. And yeah, that's so. I took that as being a bit of like satire, but also at the same time, it had this kind of, you didn't know where it was going to go at first. You kind of thought, okay, he's actually going to go in there and kick some ass kind of thing. But instead, what he does is he sits there and takes it, doesn't he? It's like almost like he thinks he deserves it, and he just lets them
Yeah.
beat him into a pulp, so
Yeah.
that they'll just kind of accept him and give him the information that he wants.
Mm.
So, what about you, Jonathan? What did you think of that?
The sort of fighting bit. Well,
Yeah,
I found it. I mean, I'm not keen on people just being punched in the face on film.
no,
I mean, we actually this afternoon we were watching Home Alone 2 with a
oh, brilliant. Oh yeah, that has a big fight scene in the underground parking lot as well.
mad. Yeah.
Donald Trump's best work.
Yeah, it didn't seem to make that much sense. I guess it has a sort of metaphorical side to it, which you point out quite well. But that bit didn't really do it, but for me. But yeah, I really like the relationship with the young lad, and how he becomes a sort of mentor to him, and this lad's sort of very in this sort of social media world. And Nick Cage is, well, funny enough, he's the pig in a way, isn't he?
Sort of. He kind of is, yeah.
That's why he doesn't wash his face, because pigs don't wash their faces.
No. He's come back to the earth quite literally, hasn't he, in every sense?
Yeah. And so he's this sort of elemental sort of character that's come to teach this sort of cyber individual sort of something about reality, I guess. And I like that. And one thing I actually really like, just a sort of very personal thing, I like the fact that it's broken into chapters, and each chapter has a recipe. Not sure if it entirely works, because
it didn't work, but it's a great idea. Yeah,
I like films with chapters somehow. I don't know why. It's just a personal thing. And so you got just 3 chapters. Each one's a different recipe, and it sort of sounds nice. And at the beginning, your sort of mouth is sort of watering a little bit. Oh, sounds so
yeah. I think I can relate to that, and I do love it. And I think I would venture that this writer-director had a brilliant idea and felt, because he didn't grow up in Portland, so he doesn't know, he's not native of the area. I think he may have lived there for a while, but I don't think he knows it. It's not the bones of him. Like, it's not the story he simply had to write, which I think is it's kind of broad strokes in a lot of places. I think he thought, this is a brilliant idea. The location, the character, the pig, and I think he saw the resolution, the grief, which is something first timers often turn to. And then I think he might have struggled with his middle. The chapter device is something to get a bit of structure in when you jump. And also I think it would explain this idea of the underground fighting. What happens here? So we can't just have him. We need to set up this dad character. How do we get there? We need a set piece. We need something. And then you think, okay, there's a fighting thing, and it's why? What has that got to? Oh, it's linked to the hotel and his heritage. You can only see it. It doesn't serve the story, I don't think, in its purest form. Actually, I would say, I was sure it was set about based on a novella. It had that feeling of a short book. Right. I thought, this guy, it's kind of like Kelly Reichardt stuff. These 100-page novels that elemental is a great word, that have that kind of feeling, and a director comes along and adapts them in a beautiful way. It felt like that.
Kelly Reichardt, that's a really good example, because this film has a very similar vibe to some of her films.
He wishes, right? Like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
does it genius level, and
Yeah.
this is making a brilliant play to do something like that, but it
Mm.
doesn't have that genius level that her work has. Which I think on first viewing I felt, oh, it's so refreshing, it's so interesting. Didn't really think about it.
Well, I think this is I guess what sort of Ken was saying, and how when it came out, it was sort of during lockdown, which was a sort of quite a dreamy time, wasn't it? Like everything felt slightly unreal.
Yeah.
Everything was, we were all, it was a sort of international dream we were all stuck in, and this is a sort of dreamy film as well.
Mm.
And so
It
it's,
does. It feels like it.
yeah,
But it's kind of about connection too, because you brought up about the young lad. And the best thing why I really love that character and that whole relationship is because, in a sense, like you were saying, he's someone he seems a bit lonely at the beginning. He seems like he's a lonely kid and
yeah,
he's trying to make connections. He's listening to these recordings about how to appreciate classical music. But
yeah,
of course, just like we were just saying, there is that when you approach things in that sort of like if someone has to spell out to you how to appreciate a piece of art, you've already kind of lost the battle in a sense because you're only experiencing it through a completely intellectual approach or from through somebody else's
Yeah.
viewpoint.
mm,
Whereas when you experience something directly, you just have that connection that you develop yourself and your own feelings and your own ideas and what you take away from it. And what's beautiful about this film is a lonely young man, and he tries. You can see at the beginning he's trying to make a connection with Nicolas Cage's character. He's trying to sort of make some kind of connection, but Nicolas Cage is just, I don't want to know. I don't know. I don't want to know. Leave me alone. Get out. Just drop off your stuff. Take the truffles and get out of here. Doesn't want to talk to him. Doesn't want to engage with him on any kind of meaningful level. Make any kind of connection with him. But through this quest, Nicolas Cage and the young man are both forced to make that connection and in a more meaningful way through food and just through that journey and through the experience of having to go and solve these issues.
mm,
So for me, that's like sort of a key thing about the film is just about how people make those real connections with each other as opposed to like Ken, like you were saying, like just now today, everyone relates via electronically through devices, through screens, through, posts on social media and things like that. But they're not really making that same kind of tangible, real connection with each other that perhaps was more common in the past.
It's interesting that you said the classical musical thing is obviously a metaphor for the food industry and how the restaurants are pretentious, and then it again plays out. And again, I do think it's a clever use of half a page by the writer to get to that 100 pages that he needed. What can the kid be listening to? Okay, I can put some dialogue in here where there's a guy talking about classical music that gets me from A to B. That's like, okay, I've done that. But also I thought the scene in the restaurant was the most pre-post Bear thing where this idea that head chefs are so pretentious. So this guy, are we there yet? Can we just like, do we spoil the scenes? I don't know
yeah, I think so.
what the rules are, but when they blag this seat in this table in this restaurant, and it looks like a complete shit restaurant. There's nobody there. There's nobody working there. There's just all these diners sitting there. It's kind of okay. They didn't have budget for this. Like there's nothing going on in the scene. I would have put it in a corner somewhere. And this guy comes in, and it's so pretentious. And I think anyone with any interest in food, anyone who reads food criticism or goes to restaurants would know that, to be at that level, most chefs would be clever. They would be able to articulate their idea. It was all so clearly bullshit. And then I thought Nick's or Rob's idea about food and what it should be was like a bit vague and not really in the real world at all. Whereas I thought maybe the bear did capture chefs' drives and where the ambition comes from. But yeah, it's exactly the same. Why these people? It's pretension, isn't it? That's what the film is about. It's like people's pretenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And the difference between that and the real connections, real
but
real
are there?
things.
What would you say are the real relationships, bar Nick and the pig?
Well, I think they're all real relationships,
But
aren't they?
the connections that we're if we're saying it's about striving for real connections, the sister and I guess the people from his old life maybe. You can see that I thought that the scene in the bakery was really nice, and I
Yeah.
got that. But everyone else seemed, I don't know, I didn't really get that because he's just given up. I don't, he
But
loves
maybe not
his
by the end. I mean, obviously, we don't want to spoil this for anyone who's not had the pleasure of the film yet. But by the ending, we've gone through this journey, and those two, the young lad, and Nicolas Cage, have clearly developed a
yeah.
real friendship, and they walk away with a real, they have a bond now, and they have a connection, and you can see that relationship will be different going forward. And you also get the impression that Nicolas Cage he's now found a way to start working through that grief.
I
And
thought
he's even
that
got some
he
more. By
doesn't.
the end of it, he's got some more laid on top of it. But
Yeah.
perhaps now he might start to process that. And I don't know. I thought the film had a hopeful ending, and it has
I
you
found
know,
it completely bleak at the end. Completely bleak. I was like, have you learned nothing? You're exactly the same as you were at the beginning, but you just don't have a pig. It's like, whoa. And he crawls into that dirty bed and he puts on that. And you're thinking, God, Nick, you have to move on. There's an earthquake coming. You might as well enjoy yourself.
well, well, that's it. That's interesting. It's definitely an interesting take. We obviously saw, I guess, interpreted the ending a bit different, which is fair enough. That's what it's all about. And I don't know, Jonathan, did you have any last thoughts? Because I'm just conscious now, time wise, we might have to think about moving
Yeah.
on in a few
Well,
minutes.
so one of the things that when I'd heard about the film, I'd actually before because I saw this one called The Truffle Hunters, a Storyville documentary on BBC,
Okay.
which is all about these old Italian guys sort of hunting for truffles, which is pretty good. And I think I was talking about that to someone. I said, "Oh, that's when I first heard about pig," but it's completely different. Although they're all eccentrics in the Truffle Hunters film as well. Yeah, but I guess that's the thing. It is a sort of dreamy film, and it perhaps doesn't do too much to analyze it, and maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
If you just go along for the ride, you have more fun. As soon as you start thinking about it, there's issues.
Yeah. It's just vibes, Johnny. Just vibes.
Vibes. It's all about vibes. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's interesting. And I must admit, I've not seen The Bear. I've had several people who've told me, have recommended I check it out, but I'm not really one for committing to television series a lot, so it takes a lot to get me to actually go for it. But I might check that out at some point because it sounds like I might find it enjoyable, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. So, and even my lovely wife has told me constantly. She says, "You got to watch The Bear. It's so good. You really like it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, at some point. But I usually check out TV series like sort of like 5 years after they've kind of run their course, and then I finally get around to them.
Well,
So
I'm currently watching Lost.
Lost.
Lost and Lost.
Oh god. Well, I just finally got around to watching The Boys because everyone kept telling me how I would love it. It's my kind of thing. It's got my kind of, I would really enjoy it. And so I finally got around to a couple weeks ago. I watched the first couple series over. I kind of binged them over sort of like a week or something, a week or a week and a half. And I did really enjoy it. It is quite funny and quite got some good satire in it and stuff. But I'm not really one for telly programs. To generally speaking, I tend to just prefer films done in one night, and then move on to something else. So anyway, well, unless there's any other thoughts, so I'm a bit curious then because I would recommend Pig. I would say to someone you should definitely check out Pig. I think it's a really really good film, and very interesting, but I'm not sure now that I'm interpreting whether you guys would recommend it, which is especially interesting because Ken, you kind of brought this one to the table for us tonight. So,
Yeah,
what do you think? Any final thoughts?
I would recommend it in a heartbeat. It's a very well made film. Maybe doesn't need a repeat viewing.
Okay.
It's a good film, very well made, but it's not like Kelly Reichardt. It's just a very solid debut.
Okay. Well, how about you, Jonah? What would you say to someone who was thinking about watching Pig?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. It's Nick Cage, not in his mega acting sort of style, and if you're interested in truffles, one of two films about truffles that I know about, so probably check it out on that score as well. But if you like films about sort of people on quests in sort of strange, slightly alternate realities, which is Portland basically. Check it out too.
Great. Okay. Well, when we're talking about master chefs, I think when we come back, we're going to take a little bit of a break and go and get ourselves some truffle sandwiches or truffle pie or what do they put truffles in? I guess they put them in all kinds of things, don't they?
All kinds.
All kinds. So we're going to go and have some, truffle snack bites. And we'll be back to talk about our second film tonight, which is the one that Jonathan and I put forward. Well, really, it was Jonathan. He was the one who suggested it, but I'm glad he did because I love it. And it's a classic Japanese film from 1985 called Tampopo. And we'll be back in just a moment to have some ramen.
Hey film nerds, Film Swap is now on Letterboxd. It's where you'll find capsule reviews for every film we've covered on the show, plus themed lists based on each of our episodes, and our essential cinema list featuring the films we think are absolute must-sees. You can explore the themes and dive deeper and even drop your own swaps and suggestions in the comments. Got a perfect pick for one of our themes? Tell us. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd, hit us with your hot takes and submit your swaps. It's like Criterion Closet, except only more chaotic. Just look for Film Swap Podcast on Letterboxd or use this handy-dandy QR code. There's also a link in the comments. Hidden gems, forgotten classics. Follow Film Swap on Letterboxd and let's get nerdy.
And we're back. Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, Jonathan, and our special guest, Ken Williams, who's here tonight to talk about food, but not really food at all. We're talking about food films or films that have as their central theme the preparation of food. Is that a fair way of putting it?
I think so. Definitely.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a bit more going on under the hood here, and I think that's what we can explore a little bit. This film that we're talking about in our kind of culinary communion double feature, the second film, it's a bona fide classic, I think. It's a film that at the time of its release was a massive hit. both in Japan and around the world, really. And it's a terrific film. It's got a completely different vibe than Pig, whereas Pig is a deep drama. This film is a comedy. It's a much lighter, more fun, and but still somewhat complex story about people and their relationship to food and the quest for bettering oneself. Is that a fair thing to say about the film? I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. One of the interesting things that both films share is sort of grief or bereavement, at least.
Hmm.
So the heroes or heroine in both films have been bereaved, and it's sort of what they do with their grief where it differs. And this one's a lot more hopeful
Hmm.
and a lot more funny. But I mean, it
Hmm.
is a comedy, and it's an absolutely terrific film.
Mm.
Really, really good. I hadn't seen it before I chose it. I'd heard it.
Oh, right.
I'd heard it was good.
Isn't that kind of technically cheating, Jonathan?
I'm not averse to
Well, I can't continue it like this.
cheating.
Yeah, Jonathan, you've spoiled it now. We're just going to have to
Well,
toss the whole
Already
thing.
told her.
I knew it was.
Trying to ruin it for everybody.
It was good. It was a good film about food, and it was a film I'd been sort of wanting to watch for ages. And I thought, wow, this is a brilliant opportunity. And
I don't think this is the first time that you've put forward a film that you haven't seen before, have you? I think I've done it once or twice as well, haven't I?
I will do that every so often, especially it's one that's been sort of hanging around. I've been wanting to watch,
Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, it's great. It's directed by Juzo Itami. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly.
Hmm.
And it stars his wife Nobuko Miyamoto and the great Ken Watanabe. There is actually other sort of stars in there, but those are the two main ones, I think, aren't they?
They are indeed, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely terrific as well.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so I guess the story, such as it is that there's this lorry driver who's Ken Watanabe, and he stops at this ramen shop. The woman who runs it, sort of not really doing very well, and he takes on the task of trying to help her make the best ramen in Tokyo and get all the customers that are currently going to the other ramen shops. And so they sort of go. This is a sort of journey to learn how to make the perfect ramen. So there's lots of different elements to it. One of the key things is making the broth, basically boiling up bones. And you've got to learn how to cook noodles, got to learn how to slice the meat, and various things like this. So it's all about sort of the craft of making this dish. And but there's lots of little sort of interjections and sort of detours, which I really enjoyed as well. And it's funny and wise and sexy, and it's got everything in it. It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What did you both think?
Fantastic. Well, Ken, how about you? Is this your first time with Tampopo
It
or
is.
yeah? Oh,
Yeah,
great.
it
So
is. And it's slightly before my time. So
is it?
is it 85, is it?
85.
It was 1985, yes.
So I wouldn't have been aware of world cinema at that time.
Hmm.
Um, so I had never heard of it, which I'm shocked by, because since I've mentioned it a couple of times to a few people, they have definitely been aware of it, said it's on my list, things like that. So yeah, shocked it's never kind of crossed my radar, but loved it. Yeah, I really loved it from the first shot to the first scene. I thought hilarious, should be on before every film, and then the final
Exactly.
shot was absolutely gorgeous and like beautiful. And what else did I think? I think the vignettes really made it. So I think the silliness works. Again, it's craft. this genius level, like we're saying with Pig. There isn't genius in Pig. Probably it's very good, but there is such a point of view here, such a strong original point of view. It sustains the whole film, like ramen. It's all about sustenance versus refinement, or
Mm.
refinement maybe. But yeah, the vignettes reminded me of the kind of silliness of the early Woody Allen stuff, like the sex movie he did, and the one about the dictator, and all of those kind of silly, funny ones. But they had little vignettes that kind of caught it up.
It's a
Um,
bit Monty Python-ish, isn't it? In that it
yeah,
sort of leads into there's like a framing story, but then it leads into these little separate skits
yeah,
that are sort of self-contained, but kind of also
speak to the same
thematically sort of
story.
fit
Yeah,
in with the overall sort of
yeah,
picture.
and not
So,
very
and they're just
sophisticated.
wonderful. Some of them, they're
Yeah,
just very funny and very,
totally
very
charming.
enjoyable.
Yeah, totally charming. I loved it. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
and I thought it's funny because the ramen is such a trend now on social, and my daughter's obsessed with ramen. So we were on a day trip, and I treated them to a ramen lunch, inspired by watching it yesterday morning. So yeah,
No,
brilliant. Really happy with the recommendation. Loved it.
oh, good. Yeah, I was. One thing I wanted to mention. So I was talked to my. I've got a friend in Japan who I sort of call a couple of times a week, who, as I'm walking the dog in the morning before I go into work, and so I was mentioning it to them, and they said, "Hey, yes, a great film," and they were telling me a little bit about ramen.
Mm.
So ramen, they said that ramen sort of restaurants or cafes or shops or wherever they are sort of close down very quickly because or don't tend to last that long because basically it's really difficult to make money out of it because it's so damn involved.
Right.
Mm.
See in this film, making just the broth, which is very simple in a sense, but you might have sort of pork bones and beef bones and chicken bones in there, and it's just very, very complicated. So they last for a bit and then they go out of business, apparently, which she said is sort of interesting because it's a sort of simple working class food. But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's this immense art to it as well, which was
Mm.
interesting. And so near her, she lives in Osaka, and near her is this restaurant, little cafe thing, which has a Michelin star. But basically, it's you can get a meal there for like £7 or £8, so it's very affordable. So it's basically I don't know what it's. If you look it up, I'm sure you'll see it. But I think it's quite similar to this thing. Small, selling good sort of good food, good honest food, I guess. But the funny thing is, for this one, you have to get there really really early to get in. And this one is actually udon rather than ramen, which is sort of slightly different. But anyway, that's a little bit of background for the sort of ramen, real life ramen, which I thought was interesting.
This film, I love it because it reminds me of. I've had two great trips to Japan in my lifetime. I went and spent a bit of time there and just traveling around and meeting people. And of course, because I was there on sort of on a fairly budget sort of scenario, I relied very much on these little cafes and these little places where you get something, a pretty nice meal of noodles or gyoza or something for very inexpensive. And so I kind of relied on these places. And so this film very much reminds me of my travels through Japan, just in that sense, these lovely little places where everyone was so welcoming, and you just get this nice, lovely, good food. And it is true that the film really brings home just how much work it is to run these places, and the fact that this poor lady would be standing on her feet all day with all these people coming in yelling, saying, I want a pork one, I want this, I want this,"
Mm.
and just having to constantly be doing all this all day. So it must be absolutely physically exhausting to do the job of running a restaurant like this. And I think the film kind of captures that sort of dedication and that. But I also like the fact that very much, again, it's about the mastery of something, about like something that's on the surface is quite simple and basic. Like you say, it's kind of like a working class like restaurant that people just nip in for a lunch during their lunch break and things like that, or grabbing something quick after work. Um, but they get down into the minutia of creating this and about exactly in such precision and such attention to detail about just what makes something just perfect, that I really love that. And the fact too that some of the masters, the sensei that they go out to find, who actually lives in the homeless community, and they bring him that, which kind of brings it back a bit to
Pig.
Nicolas Cage's character, is this idea of someone who's a master craftsman at the art of these culinary magic, yet they've been marginalized in the community, either by design or by choice, that they can't live amongst kind of the mediocrities and the the normal stresses and strains of life, that they've been pushed out into the margins of society, uh, despite the expert qualities that they have in what they do. So I really love that aspect of it as well. And there's just some wonderful scenes, like the one when they sneak into the place because the boy says he wants,
Yeah.
was it a rice omelet. So the
Yeah.
guy says, okay, come on. And they actually break into a restaurant or a hotel or something, I think it is, and kind of sneak around the security guard. And they play a lot with those sort of tropes of those kind of comic scenes of, someone ducking around the corner just in the nick of time as someone else emerges. And then they make this, go through this process of making this lovely rice omelet. And there's just those lovely scenes like that just to go throughout the film. And I just really enjoyed it.
That bit made me think of sort of silent movies. That scene where they're sort of trying to make the egg fried rice, like a sort of the farce that they have in Laurel and Hardy or something like that.
Mm.
But and that's one of the great things about it, how it has all these different sort of genres, and it sort of plays with them, like it's got Western and gangster and silent and God knows what else. All of them
Erotic.
erotic. Thank you very much. Yeah, all jumbled
Yeah,
in.
yeah. Yeah, there is that terrific scene with the little love scene, and they
Oh my
have all
God.
all the food stuff that they're sort of
Yeah.
integrating into their lovemaking, and it's quite a funny scene
The
actually.
scene that will stay with me is the licking of the pit. Right? I was, what? That's the first time I've seen that in cinema. Pit licking.
Well,
Who knew?
one of the
Salty, I guess.
this it's so original. That's one of the great things about it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like brilliant. Love it. And it's you don't see that anymore. You don't see pits being licked.
But I really like the granny. I actually can't remember where she fits into the story, or if she fits into the story. Sort of creeping around this sort of grocer's and picks up.
Oh yeah.
Squeezing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Yes, it's brilliant.
ah.
Yeah, because you do see that. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been in grocery stores doing my shopping and seeing people who do that, like pick up pieces of fruit and they sit there kind of going like this. And then if they don't like it, for whatever they're squeezing for, whatever they're trying to find with the tips of their fingers, they end up just putting it back. So I thought that scene really resonated with me. I thought it was hilarious. And just the guy trying to catch her, and she just does this and ducks behind the next place and starts squeezing something else. It's just very, very, very funny.
Yeah.
And they referred to this film as a ramen western,
Yes.
because the film kind of plays with the western trope, the idea of the kind of Shane, like the guy coming in and sort of, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to set this right, and I'm going to help you to get this thing on its feet and get you going.
Yeah.
And
It's
then, of
essentially
course,
Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares.
yeah, yeah. And then it has the kind of almost Littlest Hobo kind of ending, that sort of like, okay, I've done what I needed to do here,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to move on, tip my hat, see you, ma'am,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's that kind of like, so it kind of is very playfully brings in all those kind of tropes from sort of American Western films, which are, it's just terrific, very funny.
Yeah. It didn't take itself serious in any way, whereas Pig might take itself too seriously potentially when you're trying to make that point where
Yeah.
there's a light of touch and a confidence throughout the film, allowing itself to be silly, allowing itself to kind of be in on the joke
Yeah.
or on the nose. Some of it, some of the on the nose stuff I found to be really tender. You think, oh, it's really touching. So yeah, tremendously made, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, really beautiful, really beautiful. I noticed that because this film's been quite influential, I think, because I noticed when I wanted to give the Wikipedia page a quick going over before we spoke, and when I did a search for Tampopo just on Google, this chain of restaurants came up here in the UK called Tampopo, and I'm assuming that was influenced by this film,
Yeah.
because I do remember at the time this film came out, it was a massive, massive hit, even in the West, in America, and here in the UK. It made a huge impact and was very popular, um, understandably.
Mm.
And because it's very accessible, I think even people who might not necessarily think they'd want to watch a kind of an arty foreign film,
Okay.
this film is just incredibly accessible and lovely for anyone to watch. Anyone could get into it and appreciate it, and
Yeah.
engage with it.
Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, I know I just said Ramsay, and it is the art house cinema version of Gordon Ramsay. But to your point about not watching too much telly,
Yeah,
you could see the Pig potentially being a series and not being where Tampopo, where it's genius. With another point that shows that it's a masterpiece is it couldn't be anything other than a film. It is cinema at its purest form. You
Yeah.
could only This could only be a film, a piece of singular cinema. Yeah, it's wonderful, really.
Very joyful.
Yeah,
and if I'm not mistaken, because I know, Jonathan, we were talking about this last week when we were kind of setting up the show, that the director is no longer with us. He never.
Extraordinary story. Did you read that, Ken, about what happened to
no,
him?
I didn't.
Well, it's not.
Well, maybe for the benefit of our listeners, Jonathan, if you could explain that unfortunately the chap came to a bit of a tragic end.
Yeah. So he jumped off a building, and
Jesus.
then when they went to his sort of study, they found on his typewriter was a sort of suicide note. But anyway, later on, it turned out his next film was going to be about the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia.
Right.
And essentially, this guy, a Yakuza member, admitted to taking him up onto the roof and saying, you either jump, you might survive, or I'm going to shoot you, and you're going to die for sure. And so the whole thing was,
Christ,
yeah,
that is mental.
crazy, absolutely crazy.
Hmm.
Because
So was it a hard hitting? I mean, they could have just watched Tampopo and they'd be like, "Well,
yeah,
this guy's not going to expose us. It's going to be this whimsy. They have nothing to worry about."
absolutely, yeah.
What? Unless he was doing a complete change of pace work-wise. That is tragic.
Yeah,
That is,
It's quite interesting too, because it's not like no one else has ever made films about the Yakuza. This is what's baffling about it to me, because even we were talking a couple episodes ago about Beat Takano, about his his films, where he's done several films that are kind of gangster, Yakuza sort of themed. I don't think anyone threw him off a building, did they?
Nope.
Terrible.
So,
That's a shame.
so what's that about? What was it about this guy's film that upset them so much that they
Yeah.
felt they needed to get rid of him?
Maybe it's the worldwide. If you said it would made a splash across the world, it's such a hit. If he was well known. How long after the release was it? Was it?
This is in the 90s, I think, because
Oh,
he died in 97. Well,
so wow, that's terrible.
yeah.
So, yeah, really, only 10 years after this film, he passed away.
Yeah,
Also, it says actually The Funeral, because I was going to mention, because The Funeral is a wonderful film as well. And that was his first film. That actually predates
Oh,
Tampopo.
right, right.
okay.
And then he made the Taxing Woman films. There's two, Taxing Woman and Taxing Woman's Return.
Right.
So, so he did manage to get several films out, and they were all quite successful. Sort of, at least, certainly artistically. I don't know. I mean, the Taxing Woman films. I think I remember that they were quite well received at the
Is it
time as well.
the same tone? Like, or does he?
Kind of, yeah. They do very much have that kind of that same sort of energy and that same kind of satire. That the same, very similar vibe to
Yeah.
Tampopo.
Maybe that's
And
it.
I don't think I've seen the sequel, A Taxing Woman's Return, but I've seen the first film, and it's wonderful. And The Funeral is wonderful as well. So I would definitely recommend people after they've watched Tampopo to go seek out a couple of his other films because he doesn't obviously, unfortunately, because of his tragic early demise, we didn't get as many films as perhaps it would have been nice if we'd gotten a few more. But he did leave a nice legacy of some really, really wonderful, really enjoyable films. So
Yeah,
definitely worth checking out.
Well, I want
totally.
to check them out after.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend The Funeral and The Taxing Woman's terrific fun as well. Yeah, I don't know how readily available they are at the minute because I think Ken, when we said we wanted to talk about Tampopo, you had a little bit of trouble, I
Yeah.
understand it, accessing it.
Well, it is the bloody internet. If AI is so clever, how can we not get past this see movies thing where it shows you? Because it said I check can I watch it, and it said it's available to stream on Apple.
Mm.
Then when I finally had a minute, it wasn't, and I
All
knew,
right.
yeah, so I knew Johnny had a Blu-ray. So
Yeah, we've
yeah,
had that happen a couple times where we've wanted to talk about films and then it says it's available for rental, but then when you click through,
it's not in the region.
it isn't actually there anymore. So it's like they haven't updated their system or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but
very
it
annoying.
really brings home the sort of, because now watching these films about these people who are so meticulous in the details and about the craftsmanship of doing something really, really well. But nowadays we live in this culture where everyone's a little bit, dare I say it, a little bit lazy. They want to take the convenient route, the easy route. Everyone's doing things with AI and sort of, it's kind of like that's a nice thing about these films because it's kind of a little bit about people whose standards are very high.
Yeah,
Perhaps maybe a little bit to like in Tampopo, it's almost like comically extreme. The sort of level of commitment of the perfection of something like a bowl of ramen noodles,
yeah,
whereas in Pig, it's something that ends up alienating people. This sort of drive for
yeah.
perfection and this kind of
But it's the same nowadays. Where I don't know about your feed, but on Instagram, there's all the food influencers looking for the perfect burger and pizza, and essentially that's the same. But you have
mm,
90 seconds of really irritating, charmless people biting burgers. Well, I have a small spot for Dave Portnoy. I shouldn't, but I do. and his pizza reviews, and it is utterly basic and simplistic, but the same. It's showcasing working man's food.
Yeah.
Pizza and burgers are the food of the people, and
Yeah.
people are obsessed with watching these vids, and they'll never, with the death of physical media, probably hear a Tampopo. So keep up the good fight, lads.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully, maybe a few people might discover it off the back of this.
Yeah,
But you're right, because I see them all the time. Even in our like I live in a little village, and there's these sort of gourmet burger places
yeah,
that crop up, and you just think, well, a burger is a very basic, earthy thing, isn't it? It's a slab of meat in between two pieces of bread,
yeah.
maybe with a few condiments or other, peripherals thrown in there for good measure. But at the end of the day, it's a very simplistic,
But
earthy
but
kind
so is
of,
ramen, and this
and
is
so
the
is ramen.
point. And
So
that's why
the idea
food.
of like trying to somehow make it into something kind of posh and
Well, it
is
is.
in of itself just slightly absurd. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, you can always improve things, aspire to make something even better than it is,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
It Yeah, I was thinking very briefly, haven't overthought it, but the food and cinema as culture, like I think food probably highest form of culture in that it's such a signifier of place and history, and cinema, tries to reflect how we feel, but the battle of sustenance, culture sustains us, food sustains us versus refinement. How do you refine it? How do you refine and refine? And therefore,
Mm.
words like posh and delusions of grandeur come into it. But really, it's just trying to improve or put your mark on it or your point of view or whatever, which I
Yeah.
think uh, Tampopo does perfectly. They really shows.
Well, yes, because it's really tied into her identity.
Yeah,
Because at the end, the shop becomes Tampopo, and it is, whereas before she was dealing with grief and living in perhaps the shadow of her past, but this was her way of finding herself and bringing her own
yeah,
personality into into this dish and into the restaurant and into her life, really, and sort of taking control of it, taking charge of it. And she was helped by other people in the community who supported her and taught her and passed on their wisdom and their ideas that she continues to cultivate and grow. And so, really, ultimately, that's kind of what the film is about this woman finding her feet and her identity after a tragedy. And it's lovely. And it does it in a very fun and engaging and sort of
yeah,
very enjoyable way. And bringing in all the counterpoints of all these other little stories and skits, too, just
yeah.
how they seamlessly integrate into the whole. It is just an extraordinary piece of work and just such a lovely film. I couldn't recommend it highly enough, really, to people if they've never seen it. You don't know what you're missing, folks.
You need to do
It's
more
so good.
vignette films. I think we don't get enough vignette films anymore.
No,
Yeah.
So pleasing, really great.
very pleasing.
Well, that sounds like another subject for another episode going forward. Ken,
Ah,
you'll have to come back and join us,
Yeah.
and we'll do
Oh, we'll
vignette
definitely
films
do
or
vignettes.
anthology
Unless you do,
films.
is licking pits? That's not a theme, is it? I don't know if there's licking pits. But if you do that, give me a shout. But if not, vignettes.
Well, I'm beginning to think Jonathan and I could weave a theme out of any. You give us any two films, and we can. A theme will emerge to bring the two films together.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Both times I've been on this show, the films have been remarkably similar.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
idea of building, or like getting over grief and using kind of restaurants as identity, all that kind of thing.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, very enjoyable. I would say you should put maybe a warning to vegetarians. There's a
Oh,
quite brutal turtle scene that
oh yeah.
anyone who's a bit squeamish was like, oh my god, the poor beautiful turtle.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Got
kind of
it.
like a little bit of a cannibal holocaust kind of moment, wasn't it? Sort
Yeah,
of, the
completely.
old,
They went
yeah.
for it, didn't shy away, which is great. I love the camera stayed, and it was, but yeah,
Well, interestingly, too, that this, because I was watching it on the Criterion Blu-ray, but it's the Criterion UK Blu-ray. But they didn't edit that scene out, and they usually in the UK they have a bit of a problem with violence against animals.
all right. Well,
Whereas
it's
violence against humans is apparently okay.
yeah,
But if you hurt an animal, not that I'm saying that it's good to hurt animals or anything like
yeah,
that. But what I'm saying is, I'm just making the distinction that um, some things it's interesting the kind of things that are people find acceptable and the
yeah.
things that
You
they
heard the
don't.
famous story about the breasts on screen.
Mm.
I can't remember what director it was or what film it was, but they wanted to show like bare tits, and they couldn't, but they could if they cover them in blood.
Isn't that extraordinary?
You know, right?
I hadn't heard that
That's
one.
Yes.
America. I don't know. I can't remember, but you did think
Well,
that sums it up, really. That does sum it up. And which is great. I think refreshing, as you said, erotic and sexy kind of films. You don't see those anymore either.
No.
And it is nice to kind of go, oh, that used to be the way. It was kind of very grown up. Whereas now it's kind of hidden on your phone or whatever. I don't know. It seems
well,
very unhealthy.
we do seem to, and I don't think it's necessarily coming from a bad place. I think it's kind of people are trying to correct some imbalances, and that's all well and fine. But I think, yeah, if we find ourselves slipping back into a kind of puritanism as well,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to just be aware of that as well. But certainly gratuitous nudity and
Oh,
sex
yeah.
and certainly also about being a little bit more mindful about the expectations that we have of people who are having to perform this and having to do these things,
Yeah,
about
this
being
is
mindful
joyful.
about
You know, it's
how
like,
they feel about it and what they're willing to give and what they're not willing to give for their artwork, shall we
yeah,
say.
yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, just striking a balance is right. But you're absolutely right. Like nowadays, films often aren't very sexy, are they?
Yeah.
Anyway, was there any last thoughts? I'm just mindful of the timing now. About Is there any last thoughts that you wanted to say about Tampopo or Pig or food films or anything else? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Well, I'd say watch Tampopo. It's absolutely terrific. Very funny, very wise, and good on ramen. It'll make you think, yeah, I've got to go and get some ramen.
Mm.
And that's the other thing I learned is because I thought, oh, perhaps I could make ramen at home. And when I
Mm.
asked Tanami about it, she said nobody in Japan eats ramen at home. You always go out
Yeah, cool.
with the broth, and basically that's like a massive effort. And so you have to go out to somebody who's taken that time to sort of make that broth. Um, and you can't, it's not a sort of packet thing.
So,
Mm.
by its very nature, it's a communal activity, ramen, isn't it?
Good way of putting it, yeah.
Kind of like what films are as well, really, aren't they? Really, at their heart, they're meant to be experienced communally.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Ken, any last thoughts about Tampopo?
No, I mean, absolutely love this. More films about food, please, that aren't like stressy chefs. That's such a cliche now. Bear have kind of done that really well. But no, the joy, yeah, the joy of food, which is, I guess, my point earlier. Yeah, it was just joyful and kind of knew what it was. Really strong, confident point of view. Really, really great. I'm going to
Brilliant.
see if there's a box set of the director's work now.
Yeah, I'd like to see them become more widely available. Because as I said, Tampopo is easy to get a hold of if you buy physical media. There's a lovely Blu-ray from Criterion Collection, which is available in the UK and in the United States. So basically, whatever side of the pond you're on, it's easy to get hold of, and it's a lovely Blu-ray, beautiful transfer. And it would be nice. And The Funeral is available from Criterion as well. But the Taxing Woman films, I'm not quite sure about. I can't remember the last time I saw them around, so I don't know how easy it is to get hold of them, which is surprising because they were quite popular films. So it's odd that some of these things have kind of fallen out of the public consciousness a bit. But again, I think that's just indicative of the time we live in with streaming and stuff, the algorithms. And
I will say one thing just to finalize. I remember thinking it reminded me a little of my favorite film that I've seen this year, Perfect Days. You seen that? Wim Wenders one?
I have
Wenders, yeah.
Simple living in Tokyo vibe.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of scenes that really I thought, actually, is this borrowing from that? So if you haven't seen Perfect Days, great. Absolutely tremendous. About the toilets in Japan. A project for the Olympics. They had these world-class architects design amazing public toilets. And the Olympics then, because of COVID, nobody came. So they asked vendors to make a doc about it, like a promo film. And it turned in, he wrote the script with somebody else, I can't remember who. And it's the most beautiful film, all about simplistic living and like menial tasks becoming kind of very similar to this in a way. But yeah, amazing. And a great watch after this, I think.
Brilliant. Well, we'll have to watch out for that. Or wash out for that.
Yeah.
That'd be more correct to say. But what I was going to say is, folks, is thanks for listening. And we are going to come back very, very soon, as a matter of fact, to talk about some more films with some more friends of ours. Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you back. It's been a while, so hopefully it won't be such a long time before you come in next time. And those the vignette films or anthology films, I think that's a cracking good subject actually for a show. And so we'll definitely maybe look at doing that in the new year and reach out to you and see if you might like to come back on and have a chat with us again, because it's great having you on.
Yeah, great. Really enjoyed it, lads.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Take care.
All right, folks. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
Right. Take it easy. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Film Swap podcast. If you like this podcast, please consider giving the show a rating or leaving a review. This helps other listeners find the show. Binge-worthy and better with time, our past episodes are packed with deep dives, hot takes, and fascinating themes. Whether you're a long-time listener or just jumping in, there's a topic and a classic film to suit any taste. Explore the Film Swap back catalogue today. Learn more at filmswap.uk.
Tinsel and spun candy and thrills.
Oh, the things these nerdy middle-aged men get up to.